Alright, the next piece of artwork that we're going to create is a tree for our level. Now, this could be, if you're not used to drawing in Photoshop, a pretty tricky proposition. But we're going to come up with a way to make it relatively simple. So, we've created a new layer, and we're going to name this layer Leaves Main. And we're going to come over and we're going to find a nice bright green somewhere in, I think I'll keep it right around the middle, somewhere right in there. And we're going to go to our brush tool, grab our hard round brush, and maybe shrink that down a tad, something like that. And we're going to imagine the leaf area of our tree, make sure that we're leaving room for the trunk a little later on. And we're just going to start placing in some circles. Occasionally changing the size of our brush a little bit. And maybe something like this. This isn't too bad. Bring that brush size up a little. And just fill in the middle. Alright, so we've kind of got our leaves going on here. And now we can go ahead and add our cartoon outline to it, just like we did previously. So we're going to go to Edit and Stroke. Change our color to a full black. Click OK. And we're doing pretty good. Alright, that's not bad. Now we're going to have to do some shading on it, just like we did with our mountains. But again, we're gonna hold off a little bit on that. And the next thing we're going to work on is our trunk. Now, this can get pretty tricky if you're trying to draw by hand. Even if we use our wonderful lasso tool, creating a nice straight line isn't all that easy. Now you can do it, and if you don't mind your tree looking a little rough, you don't mind probably fixing like we did on our mountain or redoing a couple times, you might be alright doing this. And maybe we're fine here. So that's not too bad. But just in case this is the kind of thing that's just going to make you completely rage quit, we're going to look at another way of doing it more procedurally. So we'll get rid of that. And instead of using our lasso tool, we're going to use our marquee tool. And we're just going to make a rectangle. Something like that. That'll be just fine that way. And we're going to go in, select our first layer. Actually, for now, we can do this one. I'm going to make a layer above that here on top. And we're going to call this trunk. And we're going to come in and find a nice medium brown. Yeah, better than medium, I think. Something like that. And we're going to switch over to our paint bucket tool if you're still on your gradient tool. We're just going to fill this in. We're going to hit Control plus and zoom up on this just a little bit. And we can deselect, Control D, and lock our pixels again. And now we can do this. There's so many different ways we can go, and you can play around with different ones to get the look you want or the method that you like. But right now I'm going to pick darker color, brown. I'm going to go back to my brush, and I'm going to really take the size of this down. And I'm going to do just like we did the snow. I'm going to click, hold shift, drag that down. Click, hold shift, drag that down. And again, we don't have to be super even with this. Okay? Alright, we're doing pretty good. And next, we're going to manipulate our tree trunk here. So the first thing we're going to do is hit Control T so that we can move this around a little bit. Then we're going to come up and click on our warp tool up here so we can really start to mess with this a little bit. And we're going to pull this out. And just fiddle about. We want to try to avoid having too much of this overlap. I'm just going to take that in. And out here we're going to take it out. And we're not too bad a shape. Now we can hit enter so we can see what we're doing. So we can always adjust this some more. But that's not too shabby. Now you might look at that and think, gosh, Steve, that looks just really super basic and ridiculous. But you have to remember, when you really zoom this out, it's not going to look too bad at all. Once you get it to where it might be on, say, a mobile device in a game, it might only be that big and looks like a tree. If we're doing it for PC, it might be a little bigger. It's still looking okay. So we're doing alright. Now, we're going to take this, and we're going to hit Control J and duplicate this layer. And now you can see when we use our move tool, we've got another one going on here. And that's fine. And we're going to hit Control T again. I'm just going to flip this around. Bring it over. And that's not doing too bad. I'll bring that down a bit. I'm not too worried about this overlap because we're going to fix that in a little bit. So we're doing okay there. And then we're going to go back here. We're going to make another duplicate of it. Control J. And this time we can flip this one by going up to Edit, Transform, and Flip Horizontal. And we can bring this over again. Control T, and pull this down again. And we're going to rotate it a bit. Drag it out in there like that, something like that. Maybe squish it up a little. Make these branches a little smaller. We're just going to fiddle about a bit until we're happy with it. I am going to grab my warp tool again on this. And I'm going to put a little more bend in that. And there we go. Now, what we need to do is get rid of some of these nasty lines we got going on here. So we're going to go to our erase tool. And I'm going to scroll down here. Find some kind of chalk type brush. Yeah, something in there looks pretty good. And we're going to zoom in so you can see what we're doing. We're going to start to get rid of some of this. fact, I might take this bottom layer, just move it all the way up to the top, and save ourselves a little bit of work here. I've really gone and fiddled about. And to unlock that layer to keep from getting some weird color. You can see I'm erasing by starting to bring these together, and we'll touch them up a little bit. And we'll zoom in a little more. Don't worry, we can fix all this up. But we're not looking too bad. And like I said, it's going to be really zoomed out, so it's going to be hard to tell. So now we can go back to our brush. We've got our dark color, so we can just kind of fill this in. And bark isn't particularly even, so if we have a few rough patches, we're going to get away with that. And then we can just hit Alt to sample our lighter color. Clean this up a little. And that's not too bad. If you really want to run with that, that is just fine. As you can see, once we zoom out, not too bad, looks like a tree. We're good to go. There is another way to go about this. So what I'm going to do is completely destroy these. If you want to run with it like this, you can leave this, and what we would do is then we would select our top one, hit Control E, and then hit it again to make that trunk all one layer. And if that's the case, you can hang out there and just move ahead to the point where we put our cartoon outline on it. But I'm going to destroy this, and I'm going to show another way to do it. And it's basically the same thing. We're going to do most of the same procedures. I'm going to take our medium color, except I want to once again make a new layer. Be careful of that. And this time I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to manipulate this before I do anything else to it. So I'm going to hit Control J twice, give myself a couple of different copies to work with. And we can go down to our bottom one, Control T, and use our warp tool, pull these together. I'm also going to grab these other two copies. I'm going to move them out of the way just so I can see what I'm doing. So we'll just drag one off over here, drag this one off over here. That's all well and fine. Alright, now once again let's go ahead and hit Control T and bring up our warp tool, start playing around now that we can see. Tighten this up. Tighten this up. Widen this out a little. Then we'll start to put some bend in this. Now this time, because we just have one solid color, we don't care as much if we're starting to overlap some of our warp lines here. It's just not going to matter quite as much. We can take these, come way over here, a little more bend to that, and we hit enter, and that's not too bad. So I might hit Control T, drag this up a little, something like that. Doesn't matter too much. And then we can go to our new layer, and we can bring that over. And we can sort of do the same sort of thing to it. Stretch that up a little bit. Get my warp tool. Bring my center over a little. You can play around with reshaping these however you want.